So, Monsieur Hervé, first of all, it's my absolute pleasure to finally welcome you in Vilnius. It's wonderful that you're here. And you are here on this very special occasion. The beautiful production of Le Parc brings you here. And what's very interesting is that this production premiered in 1994, which is exactly 30 years ago. And now you come back to it here in Vilnius. What is your emotion? How do you feel after all these years doing it again in this new country?
What is interesting is I really don't feel that it was 30 years ago. So it's a very strange feeling because I felt like it was maybe 5-6 years ago. And it's just like interesting just to see like your baby, and suddenly your baby grew up and they became like almost adult. And we wanted to refresh the production and to have a production much more, not accurate, but to have it fresh and new and to celebrate the 30 years anniversary of Le Parc. So most of the costume, as you may know, are from the park the choreography is taking place in the 18th century. So most of the fabric are actually original documents from the 18th century. Some of them are not, but they are very close to what other century, that's kind of design. And most of the fabric, some of them were not really available. So we had to substitute and we have to find like a new way, a new approach. But so that's how we started. And it was a fun way to also to discover again fabrics and costumes that I did, and to see them again, to see suddenly like they were like cut and fresh and new again. That was really, really very exciting for me. So I'm very happy to be here. And I must pay homage to the sample room. The workshop are absolutely extraordinary. That's the level of couture and the way they are working, even the cuts, all the matching motif and everything is done with professionalism, but also with love. When you look at the work, the craftsmanship is absolutely extraordinary. So when you feel that the people also like what they are doing, because it's also, let's face it, it's very amusing to do this production. I mean, the costumes are, it's not because I designed them, but they are beautiful. And to do all this, it doesn't happen so often that you do a production like this. So you could feel that the ladies in the workshop are very, very happy with the costume. And when you put love and passion, and it's all about energy, and the energy in the workshop is really extraordinary. So it was actually a very, very easy. I work a lot, but I mean, as I say, we are not like, the condition of working is like extraordinary.
I'm sure that the Lithuanian audience would like to find out a little bit more about you. And a very traditional question, how did you get into the world of fashion? Was there something or someone maybe who inspired you, or was it just something that came very naturally to you?
For me, it was very easy. At 4 or 5 years old, I knew already what I wanted to do. My kindergarten teacher kept some sketches. I was already sketching dresses when I was 6 years old. So all the other kids were doing sketching, like, I don't know, cars and house, whatever. And I was doing dresses. So actually it was very easy for my parents, because they said, okay, this one is going to do exactly his art history, and afterwards he will go in fashion. So it was kind of a very organic way they never asked, what are we going to do with this one? It was already clear since I was a bambino. I had a very traditional education. I studied art history. I went to La Sorbonne to study art also. And afterwards I went to study fashion history, also cut, because it's very technical. And I had a very strict and very traditional. You have to put everything into perspective. Fashion at the time was not as fashionable, and fashion was not. Now fashion is all about social media, but at the time I was trained in a very conservative way. I started at after school. I was lucky enough to win a couple of prizes, but my first internship and little work that I had to do was at Christian Dior. I worked for Christian Dior a little bit, and then because I work at Christian Dior, Pierre Balmain asked me to come, and they give me my first job. So I started at Pierre Balmain as a second dessinateur, which I was sketching. And at the same thing at the time, Pierre Balmain was not, now with no Balmain, they are dressing the Kardashian. Everything was completely different. At the time, Pierre Balmain was only dressing all the blue blood royalties all over the world. So it was a completely different kind of training. The way you had the etiquette, which is part of actually very like French culture. The way you address somebody like a blue blood, is she a royal highness, or she's not a royal highness, or she's just a princess, you know, you just have to swim in this kind of pond, knowing the code of these kind of people. That was perfectly fine. I was so completely trained in haute couture, but I had no idea about what was ready to wear. And that when Oscar de la Renta asked me to come to join him in New York, and because at the time he was working for Balmain, I moved to New York and I learned ready to wear. And what was very interesting in the American way to approach fashion was like the design studio was important, but production was important, pricing was important, PR was important. All of us were like a pillar of the building, and we all worked together. It was really teamwork. And if one of the pillar is not working, the edifice, the building is falling.
Collapses,
so
yeah.
we don't have time to dish about between department, you know, like, oh, I don't like, you know, this kind of thing is completely out of the equation. So you really have to work as a team, as a member, because we all work for the brand. That's the religion. That's the main purpose. So I work for Oscar de la Renta, and I work afterwards for 15 years. I was a creative director for Carolina Herrera. To go back to your question, was at the beginning, I was still in Paris, and Angelin, that's how I work actually. I started with Angelin. Angelin was looking, he was doing les ballets russes, hommage aux ballets russes. So he already did Les Noces, and he was looking to recreate Parade. And Parade was creating, I believe it was 1917 or 1918, and the costumes were made by Picasso. It was redone in 1976, a little bit like reviewed by David Hockney, but it was very inspired by Picasso, so it didn't touch that much. But Angelin was coming and said, I want a new Parade, and forget about Picasso. So he asked designers if they wanted to do the Parade, and everybody said, after Picasso, absolutely not. It's like too dangerous. And at the time I said, well, I prefer to be hated than to be unknown. So I took the challenge and said, let's try it. And it was a big hit. So because of Parade was a success, he asked me a couple of years later, do you want to do Le Parc? And listen, to a French guy who is obsessed with the 18th century, that was like a gift on a silver tray.
That must have been ideal completely.
Oh, that was ideal. So yeah. I was having so much fun, but really, really, that's one of my best memory in my career, seriously. So we worked together and I did Le Parc, and I had like true joy. I was going to the office with a big smile, and I was like, and to work at the opera in Paris was an extraordinary experience. So it was really, really fun to do.
So do I understand correctly that it was actually Monsieur Angelin who basically brought you into the world of the theatre?
Alors yes, because that's
typical. How it started,
yes.
with him.
It's interesting, your question, because Angelin didn't want to have a regular designer. He wanted to have somebody who was not damaged, but who didn't know the tricks of design costume for ballet.
Yeah.
So my first fitting, you know, in couture, when you do a fitting, you have a model, like very stiff, like she's 7 foot tall, 30 pounds, and she poses in front of the mirror. And so I went to the opera for my first fitting, and instead to have a model playing, like, you know, basically not moving, suddenly they were like doing all their movement, and my pins were flying all over. And the opera in Paris, you know, the French could be a little bit like, The artist said, look at this one, I have no idea where he put his feet. So the first fitting was a little bit not really easy, but it was definitely an experience, for sure. Mm-hmm. So that's how it started.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask about this, creating a costume for a ballet dancer. That must be a very tricky thing to do, because they use their bodies to express things. The body is moving a lot, and the costume becomes this sort of a helper, not just for the creation of the character, but also for the body, you know, for the physicality of it all. So for you as a costume designer, that must be a little bit of a challenge to combine the beauty with the functionality.
That's true, but you know what? You learn on the spot. Interestingly enough, and I was telling this to students yesterday, you are, most of the time, when I'm the most creative, it's when I have a restriction of time, a restriction of budget, a restriction of like the movement, because you have to be creative. If you have all the money in the world, if you have all the time in the world, you never deliver a project. With a ballet, you have to be creative, but it doesn't mean that you are completely stuck because they are moving. It's actually very interesting to work to visualize the clothes in a different way. So the restriction of make you like realize that, well, yes, it's not only about your creation, your point of view, like it's your vision of fashion. I mean, that's really like, you know, you have to be a little bit more open-minded to create dresses for either a woman who goes for an event or dancers who are going on stage. So it's true that it was something very new, but I thought it was I had a lot of fun.
And now that you are in Vilnius, please tell me, did you already get a chance to get acquainted with the beautiful Lithuanian fabrics that we are so proud of?
We were in Munich, and after us, and all the team from the costumes came to look at the production, and they told me, and that I didn't know, that Lithuania was producing a lot of linen, and I said, well, we want to use your linen. So that was something very fun, because again, we are speaking about the anniversary, we have to evolve, and I think it was a beautiful way to pay homage to Lithuania and to use their linen. So all the linen in the production of Le Parc are completely done exclusively for Le Parc, for Vilnius. So what was fun is it was like they show me all the color card and all the swatches, and it was completely impossible to pick one. So I think some of the corsets have 4 or 5 different patterns, because it didn't matter. They all look beautiful. So when you mishmash everything, so I think we use like a lot of different kind of pattern, and came from this country. Mm-hmm. And I was very happy about that. Instead to order overnight, overseas, and you just use the local fabric and you promote locals industry. And that was my main goal. I was really happy.
And now to finalize this, for someone who's never heard about Le Parc, haven't seen anything, doesn't know anything, how would you tell them what are the reasons to come and see this production? Because I understand it's your baby and you love it because it's your work and it's your precious work. But for you personally, what do you feel is the most beautiful aspects of this production?
What I would say is Le Parc, the creation of Angelin. Sometimes people who are like more traditional are a little bit, not scared, but a little bit like on the edge about like a modern choreography. And I think the extraordinary creation of Le Parc by Angelin is actually a good mix to play. First of all, to go to see a modern choreography and to listen to the music of Mozart is something a little bit unusual. And I think Angelin is a perfect artist to do this kind of, to create this kind of work. I believe all of us are professionals, and we created an environment, and we created a ballet which is actually very, in a way, very popular. And not scary, like sometimes you go to see a modern ballet and you're like, it's all about the vision, it's all about the conceptual. And actually, this one is very, it's an open book. There is nothing really like, you don't need to think too much. It's a beautiful message of the art of seduction, and I think that Angelin will be really, really good to speak about this. The way he visualized, he created this different step of seduction. How like in the 21st century, it's very easy to date someone. You have an app and it's done in 5 minutes.
You swipe.
But when you are back to the 18th century, the codes and all the roots, the journey from the first glimpse of love to the wedding night it took like in the Précieuse Ridicule, it took like 15 years. So between the woman who finally say yes to her future husband. So there was something a little bit ridiculous at that time, which was part of who they were. And that's how Angelin play on this, like the art of seduction. And what is very interesting about the vision of Angelin is like love. It's like a massive stone, like a diamond, like it's like raw. And you need some people to really create the stone, to cut the stone to make it like beautiful, or like a garden, a French garden. The French garden are completely symmetric. Everything is well designed and perfectly symmetric when you look at the work of Le Nôtre in Versailles. So it took the parallel, it took the vision of how to create a beautiful garden, how to cut the beautiful trees. And these gardeners that you will see in the ballet are going to cut the love of the dancer. And little by little, what was raw at the beginning is going to become much more sophisticated at the end. And that's where we end with the famous pas de deux. The beginning is looking at each other. It's more like in the look. At the end, it's much more physical. So you will see the evolution in 3 acts, and it's a beautiful. I believe that listen, I have nothing to promote. It's like 30 years ago. If it wouldn't have been a success, it wouldn't be there today. So you have the answer. It's a public, and it's a very, it's a success because it's a beautiful piece. So that's the answer at the end.
So, Monsieur Hervé, thank you very much for your time. I cannot wait to see this at the theatre. I'm sure it will be perfection. Thank you very much.